Hello, Prosperivarians. The best school has come to stay in the city of Calabar. It is called Beryl International School. Take advantage of this opportunity now.
Tell me the best school, Beryl is the best. Tell me the best school.
Greetings to you all, pupils of grade 5. I remain your class teacher, Mr. Oga Joseph. Welcome you to today's lesson on basic science. And on basic science, we are going to be looking at the consequences of over-exploitation of mineral resources in Nigeria. Before we start, remember in our previous class we talked about mineral resources in Nigeria. Looking at mineral resources in Nigeria, we say that mineral resources are valuable materials that can be obtained or extracted from below the earth's surface. I take it again. We say that mineral resources are valuable materials that can be obtained or extracted from below the earth's surface. And we went further to mention some examples of these mineral resources that can be found in Nigeria. Remember, we made mention of crude oil as number one. And we said that crude oil as a mineral resources can be obtained or extracted from below the earth's surface, and which is being used to feed some of these industries in Nigeria, and is being refined into different byproducts like the petroleum, natural gas, diesel, kerosene, and engine oil. And we say that crude oil as a mineral resources in Nigeria can be found within the states in South like previously Cross River State, Akwa Ibom State, Delta State, Bayelsa State, and Rivers State. All of these states in the South region of Nigeria are blessed with these mineral resources we are talking about. Now, we also made mention of tin and columbite, and we said that tin and columbite are parts or examples of mineral resources in Nigeria. The 5 items we made mention include iron ore, limestone, and gold. And remember I said that natural resources in Nigeria are not just limited to the 5 items we made mention. We also include clear soil, which you all know is being used for molding and also the production of ceramics. Then we also made mention of other natural resources like uranium. Don't forget, we made mention of uranium. Yes. So today, as we are looking at the consequences of overexploitation of mineral resources in Nigeria, believe with me that as Nigeria is blessed with these natural resources, which in the importance of these natural resources, we say that these natural resources serve as raw materials to the industries. So it is with the need to feed these industries with these raw materials that exploitation is being carried out. Exploitation is being carried out. Now, if exploitation of mineral resources is being carried out in order to feed the industries with these raw materials, what will happen? Therefore, it can also lead to the cause or consequences of over exploitation of mineral resources. Having said that, we are now going to look at one of the major consequences faced in as a cause of exploiting these mineral resources in Nigeria. Now, number one of it is that mining activities can lead to erosion. Mining activities can lead to erosion. Let me write it down. Alright, mining activities can lead to erosion. If mining activities can lead to erosion, before I go further, let me first of all explain what erosion is. Now, in our previous class, we were able to talk about what? Erosion and its what? Meaning. Remember that erosion is what? The washing of what? The washing of the topsoil particle, either by what? Wind or rain, isn't it? Alright, so therefore, in the course of exploiting these natural resources, which we say that can be gotten or extracted from below the earth's surface, what will happen? There will be what? Extraction of what? The soil, isn't it? Now, the soil or the upper layer of the soil is being what? Exploited. And as a process, this... Alright, I just finished defining what? Erosion as the what? The washing away of what? The topsoil, either by wind or rain. And looking at the topic today, consequences of over-exploitation of mineral resources in Nigeria. Now, exploitation of mineral resources cannot just take place without what? Exploiting the soil. Without exploiting the topsoil in order to get what? These mineral resources, as we have earlier mentioned. So therefore, you can also know now that exploitation has to do with what? The process of exploiting what? The soil in order to do what? To get mineral what? Resources. The process by which what? The soil is being exploited in order to get what? These mineral resources. And within this process, the topsoil is being affected. And if the topsoil is affected, then it will also lead what? Lead to erosion. So the mining activities can lead to what? Erosion. Some of you have, I think, might have seen where an erosion might have taken place before. Where the rain or water does what? Affects the soil by washing greater part of the earth's surface, thereby leaving or causing a natural disaster on that soil. Now, this is number one consequences of what? Over-exploitation of mineral resources in Nigeria. This is number one consequences of what? Over-exploitation of mineral resources in Nigeria. Now, the second one we are going to look at is that over-exploitation of mineral resources can lead to what? Environmental pollution. Believe with me that over-exploitation of mineral resources can lead to what? Environmental pollution. Looking at a place where we have much of these industries feeding from this exploitation process. Now, you can see that the carbon being generated from these industries. Take for instance, I'll mention an example like the Unison. Unison is a company that carries out the production of what? Cement. And in their production of cement, they do what? Extract these natural resources from the ground, which is limestone, in order to produce into the finished product called cement. Now, this industry, with the use of their heavy duty equipment, can do what? Produce great number of what? Carbon monoxide, which in turn do what? Pollute the environment which we can be inhabitants. Now, not just the carbon monoxide. Now, the dust particles from these industries during the breaking down of these stones, which is being processed into cement. The dust particles of these stones can do what? Cause environmental pollution. And this environmental pollution is actually dangerous to what? Our health. That is why in most of these industries we are being asked to put on safety equipment. So the number two I'm talking about is that over exploitation of mineral resources could lead to what? Environmental pollution. Let me take it down. So, like I said, number two said that over exploitation of mineral resources could lead to what? Environmental pollution, just as I've explained. Now, looking at these consequences of over exploitation of mineral resources, number three. Now, in the case like the Ogoni land, for instance, the Ogoni land where we have exploitation of the crude oil, and also where the crude oil is being refined into different byproducts. When you visit the Ogoni land, for instance, you see the devastating effects of what this exploitation process in that place. Now the land has suffered what? So many things. The oil spillage, as the case may be, and so on. Now leaving the plants in that land to do what? To die. So many crops are affected as a result of what? Exploitation of what? Mineral resources. So over-exploitation of mineral resources could lead to what? Environmental what? Pollution, which effect is not just on man but also on what? Plants as well. Then the number three consequences of over exploitation of mineral resources is that it could lead to what? Now it can also lead to what? Over or irregularities in prices of mineral resources. It can also lead to what? Irregularities in the prices of what? Mineral resources. Take for instance, where so many companies are involved in extraction of what? Mineral resources, and they are what? Feeding the international market with these their mineral resources, because there are different options or alternatives to get the same product. It can also lead to what? To irregularities in the prices of these mineral resources, because if this one produces these mineral resources at a particular rate, another company can also have this same product, these same mineral resources at another rate, therefore giving an option to the customer in order to choose which one to get. So this is another what? Consequences of what? Over exploitation of what? Mineral resources. Let me put it on the board. Alright, so like I said, it could lead to what? Irregularities in where? In the prices of mineral resources. Like I said, if company A has what? A certain mineral resources, for instance, at a certain cost, and company B also have a certain mineral resources. Likewise, company C, D, as the case may be. Now, because of competition in selling their product, the price or the prices of these mineral resources might not really be the same, because other companies have what access to exploitation of these mineral resources. If this exploitation is being limited to a particular company, for instance, you can see that there will be what a regular price in the selling of mineral resources. Then we're going to look further to another consequences of over exploration or exploitation of mineral resources. Now the next one is that government and the people may lose interest in agriculture. The government, for instance, and the people might lose interest in agriculture. Reason being that exploitation of mineral resources generate more income or quick money to the economy and as well the citizen of this country, Nigeria. Now, if this exploitation is being encouraged, many people will now choose to deviate from another ministry or like from the agricultural sector into the mining and exploration sector, believing that the minerals that can be exploited can be sold at a high rate, which can also lead to acquiring quick wealth. So people or government might not be encouraged to go into agriculture because agriculture may or may not give them their expected income, as the case may be. So one of the consequences of over exploitation of mineral resources is that the government and people may lose interest in agriculture and concentrate in the exploration of mineral resources. Government and the people might lose interest in agriculture and concentrate in mineral resources. Let me put it down. Alright, number 4, we say that the government and people may lose interest on agriculture and concentrate on mineral resources. Now, it can be possible that with the overexploitation of mineral resources, looking at the benefits attached to this exploitation of mineral resources, the government might likely or may lose interest on agriculture, just like I explained before, and concentrate on mining because of the financial involvement in mineral resources. So, therefore, it will lead to low patronage towards agricultural produce, believing that going into growing of crops might not really feed you with good money. So far we have been able to look at about 4 consequences of mineral resources on the board. 4 consequences of over exploitation of mineral resources in Nigeria. But we are going to add another, number 5. We are going to add another. Now, looking at the consequences of overexploitation of mineral resources in Nigeria. One of it again is that it increases what? The risk of what? Possible vandalization of industries by unpatriotic citizens. Possible what? Possible vandalization of what? Industries by unpatriotic people. Let me put it that way. Now, in the region where we have these industries that carry out the exploration and exploitation of mineral resources, they are prone toward these possible consequences where unpatriotic people might actually go towards these industries and cause what? Sabotage or vandalize their pipes in order to get these mineral resources. This has been the case recorded so far in Port Harcourt and Ogoni region, for instance. The youth within this community that have these industries with them, these industries that carry out the process of exploitation of mineral resources, are likely exposed to what? This kind of activities where they can possibly go into vandalization of these properties in order to steal the products. That is why we used to have, sometimes we do have oil spillage in the Nigerian Petroleum Authority or Nigerian Petroleum Commission. Now, this has been one of the problems that is witnessed so far. So, number 5 of these consequences is that it increases the risk of what? Possible vandalization of what? Industries by unpatriotic people. Let me write it down. Alright, the number 5 of the consequences of overexploitation of mineral resources. I say that it increases the risk of possible vandalization of industries by unpatriotic people. Possible what? Vandalization of what? Industries by what? Unpatriotic what? People. Now, people who are unpatriotic, that means people who are against the exploitation of these mineral resources by these industries, will sometimes go into these industries or the facilities of these industries in order to do what? To steal out what? These mineral resources. Take for instance the case in the South region where we have the Ogoni land. Most people or most youths in these places are normally or usually involved in the vandalization of these industries' properties, thereby causing oil spillage, which as a result begin to destroy our lands, and most crops within this area are affected. So looking at all of this are the consequences of overexploitation of mineral resources. And remember I said that from our last class we talked about what? The mineral resources in Nigeria. Why I say that? Mineral resources in Nigeria are what? Valuable what? Substances that can be obtained or extracted from below the earth's surface. I made mention of the examples of these mineral resources, where I also presented an example of a stone. Now, I made mention of some examples like the crude oil, the limestone, gold, and as well as iron ore, tin, and columbine. Now, all of these were the examples of the mineral resources found in Nigeria. And I said that these examples are not limited to just the 5 I mentioned, but we also have clear soil, uranium, and other mineral resources. And the crude oil, like I said that this crude oil, which is being used to produce into different byproducts like the diesel, natural gas, engine oil, petroleum, and we have the kerosene. All of these are the finished product from crude oil, and crude oil can be found within Cross River State, Akwa Ibom State, Rivers State, Delta, and Bayelsa State. Now, in our today's lesson, which we talked about the consequences of over-exploitation of mineral resources. Having explained further, we made mention of 5 examples of the consequences of over-exploitation of mineral resources, which we say number 1 is mining. We say mining activities can lead to erosion, and I went further to explain the meaning of erosion, which I say that erosion is a washing away of the topsoil, either by wind or rain. Now, this erosion that is caused as a result of the exploitation of the land can actually cause a devastating effect on our land as a result of the exploitation process carried out on that land. Then number 2, I talked about the overexploitation of mineral resources could lead to environmental pollution, which I made mention of some other examples, and also mentioned UNICEF as an example of these industries that is involved in the extraction or exploitation of mineral resources from below the earth's surface. Now, these industries have heavy-duty equipment, and I said that the carbon monoxide from this heavy-duty equipment can also lead to environmental pollution. And I also explained that the process of breaking down these stones into smaller pieces and towards the production of cement can cause environmental pollution, because the stones or the small particles of stone from there, likewise the dust from the cement environment can cause environmental pollution. And that is why these industries or workers in these industries are always advised to put on safety equipment. Don't forget. Alright, so number 3, we say that it lead to it could lead to irregularities in the prices of mineral resources. When many companies are involved in the exploitation of mineral resources in Nigeria, for instance, you can see that it will actually lead to irregularities of the price of these mineral resources. Reason being that company A can provide these mineral resources, likewise company B, C, and so on. So because of the competition in it, so many industries will do fix their own price different from the other companies in order to get their way into the market. Now, the number 4 said that the government and people may lose interest on agriculture and concentrate on mineral resources. Now, this government and the people having a good knowledge of what is involved in the exploitation of mineral resources, believing that mineral resources feed the economy with a huge amount of money, might likely lose their interest in the process of agriculture, because agriculture might not really give them much money as compared to the mining and exploitation of mineral resources. Then, the number 5, I said that it increases what? Increases the risk of possible vandalization of industries by unpatriotic people. People who are not in support of this mining and exploitation process carried out by these industries found within their society can likely go into these properties and destroy in order to get what? These mineral resources for their own personal use. So all of these activities as listed here are the consequences of over-exploitation of mineral resources in Nigeria. Alright, having learned this so far, at this point we are going to take down some assignments in order to remind ourselves what we have been able to study. Alright, from our lesson today, we are going to take this as our homework. So in our homework, we are asked to briefly discuss the consequences of over-exploitation of mineral resources in Nigeria, which you have been taught. So I advise that you go through your lesson and attempt to answer all the questions as asked. Alright, having said that, I remain your class teacher, Mr. Oga Joseph. Please stay safe. Avoid crowded places. Observe social distancing and always wash your hands on running water and as well use sanitizer. Thank you and God bless you.